This is a stimulus update and daily news report. Got some important updates to share with you. Democrats have officially submitted text for the stimulus reconciliation. It looks like a deal could happen between Manchin and the Democrats for the Build Back Better resurrection. I'll give you more details on that. A potential $700 stimulus check could go out to certain Americans. Mitch McConnell blames stimulus checks for the U.S. labor shortage. I'm going to play you a video clip from Andrew Yang saying how stimulus checks did not cause the issues that are going on with inflation and the poor economy of what's going on now. Fed has just said that they're going to raise rates again, and stocks went up after this news, and I'll give you some other more important updates as well. Hope you're having a terrific Thursday. If you appreciate the fact-based, fast-paced updates, hit the like button down below. So Democrats are trying to resurrect part of the Build Back Better again. Their latest iteration focuses on provisions to reduce prescription drug prices. Another headline here, Democrats race to clinch deal on climate energy with Manchin. So it looks like Manchin is actually on board because Democrats were able to put some text in officially. So lawmakers face a fast-ticking clock as they try to secure a deal that would deliver on Biden's goals to satisfy Manchin's concerns. And where are we at with that? So Democratic leaders are racing to finalize this deal. What is the race? If you think about it, there's been so many deadlines. May 31st was the last deadline, which is crazy how far away that was ago. And it looks like they're trying to do it again before the midterm elections. So the frenzied deliberations reflect weeks of private talks between Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Manchin. Basically, a climate agreement would help the country meet President Biden's ambitious clean energy goals, even as Manchin pursues policies that would still promote fossil fuels. So supposedly, text was submitted regarding just the drug prescription part and for Medicare negotiations. We're not sure exactly what else is going to be in it. So Democrats are now working out with Manchin a potential solution that would exempt companies from methane fee if they comply with the EPA regulations. Once the rules are finalized, the two people familiar with the matter said. So looks like they're working out some details for climate as well as drug prices. We're not sure what else they're going to throw in there, but as more details comes out, I'll definitely keep you updated. In terms of stimulus payments, how to get a check for up to $700 in Ohio. So a gubernatorial candidate wants to push $350 checks for individual taxpayers. So basically, it'd be $350 for individuals, $700 for couples, and this would be using money from the American Rescue Plan that they have. So they have Ohio has $2.68 billion that they would use to potentially give out these stimulus checks. So if you're in Ohio, potentially there could be a $350 to $700 stimulus check. Speaking of stimulus checks, so it has gotten criticism, inflation, saying stimulus checks caused the problem. American Action Form president says. Also, Mitch McConnell saying, get rid of that. Mitch McConnell blames COVID stimulus checks for U.S. labor shortage. So what Mitch McConnell said here is you've got a whole lot of people sitting on the sidelines because, frankly, they're flush for the moment. What we've got to hope is once they run out of money, they'll start concluding it's better to work than not to work. So I don't fully understand this argument because stimulus checks federally were gone a while ago, and the unemployment boost was gone in September of 2021. So I'm not sure what Mitch McConnell is talking about. But on the other side, for the reason for stimulus checks and the reason why they did not cause inflation, Andrew Yang here thinks that a recession is inevitable at this point, but doesn't think stimulus checks spurred inflation. He gives a really good reason of why stimulus checks did not cause inflation. Take a look at what he has to say here and let me know what your thoughts are.
Questions about the economy, Andrew. Some people think we're on the verge of a recession or already in a recession. Do you agree? And how would the Forward Party approach the economy and inflation differently from Democrats or Republicans?
We're in a really tough spot economically. You can put me in the camp that thinks that a recession will happen sometime in the next 6 quarters, certainly. And I hope that the recession is relatively mild. There are forces that are cutting in both directions. But the single biggest thing that's pressing on American consumers is inflation. It's going from, frankly, industry to industry. And many companies are finding that they can actually raise prices and still do a robust business, in some cases make more money. So that there are going to be, in my mind, a lot of sources of persistence for inflation, which is going to lead to the Fed needing to raise interest rates more and more. I sat down for interviews with both David Rubenstein and Ray Dalio recently, both of whom have highly relevant perspectives. And David Rubenstein talked about how in the 70s, Paul Volcker raised interest rates to a point where unemployment was in the double digits, and there was a lot of economic pain. And David Rubenstein suggested that this situation is worse than that situation because our public indebtedness levels are much higher, and we've had low interest rates for so long that that we've kind of maxed out our use of certain tools. So I think it's a very, very difficult spot. I hope we can avoid the worst of it, but I certainly think a recession is inevitable at this point.
What about universal basic income? I mean, that's become one of your trademarks. I get that you don't think the stimulus checks contributed to inflation, something you've noted, but many people believe that it does. Does that make UBI harder in this environment now that everyone's second guessing all the stimulus checks from the pandemic?
Well, and this is a source of frustration for me, Andy, because if you do the math, you find that the stimulus checks were a very, very small component of the trillions of dollars that we pumped into the economy. Most of that money, went into the financial system or the banks, or in some cases, large corporates. So it saddens me that people are blaming checks that were either spent or saved, months and months ago for some of the things that we're experiencing now. And the other aspect of this that makes me upset and agitated is that the enhanced child tax credit, which lifted millions of American children out of poverty, all of the data on that showed that the money was being spent on food and school supplies and fuel, and 140 economists plus, including Nobel Prize winners, said, hey, if there's anything we should do, it's continue the enhanced child tax credit. And of course, American politics being what they are, we discontinued it at the beginning of this year. And so we have to keep our eye on the ball. I mean, when something works, we should be doubling down on it and not falling for these overly simplistic attributions, particularly at a point when we did pump $4 or $5 trillion into the economy, and 84% of that plus went into the financial system, large banks, to some extent, state and local governments. I mean, I'm not against all of the things that happened, but we made a series of choices, and we certainly prioritize institutions well above individuals and families.
So he does bring up a good point that stimulus checks may have been a smaller part of the bigger package of trillions of dollars that went to businesses and local governments. So I guess you don't really hear that point being shared too much for the people who criticize stimulus checks. What are your thoughts on that? And should there be more stimulus checks? Let me know your thoughts. In terms of the Fed, which basically dictates how the economy is going to go over the next few months, here are the key takeaways from the Fed's June meeting minutes. Take a look at right here, and I'll give you a summary after this video. Take a look at this.
Well, the minutes of the latest Fed meeting show that officials agreed that another rate hike of 50 to 75 basis points would likely be appropriate at its meeting later this month. Officials also acknowledge that there could be an even more restrictive stance that could be appropriate if inflation remains high. Now, the minutes show that Fed officials were worried about inflation becoming entrenched. That was debated several times in this document. Many participants viewed that as a significant risk. Now, officials believe that the Fed's credibility had helped shift market expectations toward a tighter policy stance, and they viewed raising rates as required to meeting the central bank's legislative mandate. Now, Fed officials also repeatedly highlighted the disparate impact that inflation is having on low and moderate income households. Officials also noted there could be some clouds on the horizon as well. Some pointed out that the pressure for additional wage increases appears to be receding There were anecdotal reports as well of consumer sales starting to slow and businesses delaying investments because of rising costs. Now, officials said that low and moderate income households are spending more of their budgets on food, energy, housing, all sectors that have been strongly impacted by those rising prices. But they also stressed that persistently high inflation could stand in the way of achieving their maximum employment mandate. Still, the committee did acknowledge that higher rates could result in slower economic growth and dampen the labor market. That is why the Fed removed language in the statement that indicated the Fed could both return inflation to 2% and deliver a strong job market. So, guys, that's just a sign that Fed officials are acknowledging and understanding that that soft landing could be very difficult to pull off. Back over to you.
So if you weren't sure exactly what was said there and what all this means, basically stocks rise after release of Fed meeting minutes. So basically, if the Fed gives good news, stocks rise. If the Fed gives bad news, then the stocks tank and go down. So I guess, the takeaways from the meeting minutes is that this is good news, at least temporarily for the next month. But we'll see what happens in terms of rate increases and what happens with that. And that is all the news that I have for you today to hopefully brighten your day a bit. Here's my daughter Bella's tip of the day.
Hi guys, this is Bella. This is the tip of the day. I just want to tell you that you should always be grateful what you have. Karma is the one that, karma, if you give things out to the world, it comes back to you. If you have a friend that is really special to you and you give them a gift and they give you back a gift. That's what karma is all about. Giving gifts. If you put silliness out in the world, you'll get silliness back.
Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate all of your time and support. Probably going to go hang out at the beach a little bit later today. Going to play some pickleball. If you want to check out any of my other videos on my other channels, you could click up here. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Be safe. Thank you for watching.